Throughout his lifetime, Leonardo da Vinci created many amazing machines. Today, I will be covering his automata, which are machines that resemble living creatures. I will be mainly focusing on his two most known automata, the mechanical lion and the mechanical knight. Unfortunately, his attempts to turn himself into a mechanical bird do not count. First, a quick history of robots. Leonardo was not the first to think up the idea of robots. Such ideas dated back to Greek mythology, where Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsmanship, was said to have built many robots fitting the description of automatons. This indicates that Leo was far from being the first to design robots. There are also a few other reports of robots dotted throughout history leading up to Da Vinci's time, meaning he was not likely the first one to build one either. Leonardo designed the basics of his first automaton in 1478, at 26 years of age. This design consisted of a machine that was programmable and computer controlled. Not a modern style of computer, but one made up of simple machines such as gears, pulleys, and springs. Although made of simple components, these systems were extremely complex as they had to replicate the timing, motion conversion, and energy conversions that would have been done by some sort of electric circuit today. The robotic knight. The robotic knight was first presented in 1495 to the court of Milan. The robot, a life-size knight clad in German-Italian medieval armor, was able to sit, stand, move its arms and neck, and depending on which source you look at, could raise its visor. At the time, this was enough to impress royalty. The robot was built out of wood, copper, and bronze, which were common materials at the time. This would have made the robot rather heavy compared to modern synthetics and textiles that could be used today. On top of this would have been a full set of iron armor weighing between 30 and 50 pounds. Moving that much mass would have increased the difficulty of Da Vinci's feat, as modern motors did not yet exist. The motor consisted of a spring that could store the mechanical energy. Da Vinci would have to crank the spring manually before each demonstration. Basically, it was a massive wind-up toy. Given his interest in human anatomy, Leonardo tried his best to replicate the form and movement of humans. The robot follows the proportional ratios as described by the Vitruvian man. He also tried to replicate the concept of muscles and how they work in pairs to allow our movement. Like most of Da Vinci's work, no physical trace of the robot was ever found. This led to speculation that the robot was either never built or did not work as it was described. However, in 2002, a roboticist named Mark Rochium recreated the robot from sections of Da Vinci's notes. The robot functioned as described in the notes, suggesting that the robot was in fact constructed and functional. Rochium has since described his experience recreating the robot in his book, Leonardo's Lost Robots. The mechanical lion. The mechanical lion is a complicated topic to cover, as historians suspect that there may have been multiple versions of it. This has led to a tangled web of stories and opinions regarding the use and time period of the lion. However, its physical descriptions and functions remain rather constant, so let's start with those. The lion was full-sized and was decorated with wood and leather. Its robotic components were similar to the knight, including the crank and spring-based motor. In addition to basic neck and tail movement, the lion could walk, which was a huge advancement from the knight. Its main ability was it could rear on its hind legs, probably using a mechanism similar to the one the knight used to stand up and sit down. This is when its chest compartment would open, revealing a bouquet of lilies. It is rather impressive that Leonardo pulled off the robotics for this creature, despite having to leave an empty space in the main body of the lion. Now for the complicated part. There are three main versions of the Da Vinci lion, and any or all of them could be possible. The first was set in 1509, when the King of France, King Louis XII, arrived in Milan. He apparently paraded through the city that was filled with small acts and other entertainment. Several of such sets were designed by Da Vinci, including the lion. It apparently walked across the top of an arch before showering lilies down before the king. The second version is rather similar, but involves the newly crowned King Francis I in 1515. Apparently, when the king arrived in Lyon, Leonardo was there to greet him in the main hall of the castle with the lion. I'm pretty sure that this is the version Jennifer described in her lectures, but there are endless variations of the where and who components of the story, so it's hard to tell. The final version seems much less possible at first glance, but becomes plausible with a bit of background information. Apparently, One of Da Vinci's lions was part of Marie de Medici's wedding celebrations in the year 1600, 81 years after Leonardo da Vinci's death. Mary was married to King Henry IV in Florence, bringing yet another French king into the picture. Mary also had a connection to Da Vinci, given he was patronized by Lorenzo de' Medici over 100 years before the wedding. It is possible that Da Vinci gifted a lion to the Medici family before he died, and it was passed through the family until the wedding. At this point, it is unlikely evidence would be found to prove or disprove any of these accounts, so they are all equally plausible. The fact that they all have a running theme makes them seem a bit more legit, though. All three cases involve some sort of welcoming of a French king by some gathering of Italians. As the lion is the symbol of Florence, and the lily is the symbol of France, the idea of the lion presenting the lilies checks out in all three stories. Impact. Out of all of Da Vinci's creations, his automatons may be some of the least impactful. They were, after all, mainly used for entertainment. However, they did sort of go against some religious beliefs. The idea that God created all life was put in question, as Da Vinci was, in a way, able to give life to these bodies of metal and wood. Did this have a huge impact on people? No, but it is an example of how Leonardo questioned how the world was seen. Finally, why I chose my topic. When I was 10, my family moved to France for a year. During this time, we visited Italy over Christmas break. While in Florence, we went to a Da Vinci museum. Being 10, I did not care much for the art displays, but was much more interested in all the replicas of his various machines. This included both the knight and the lion. Unfortunately, I was too young to realize that they were built well before modern technology, but they looked impressive nonetheless. That's all from me. Hope everyone enjoyed, or at least learned something new.